Here we go. Welcome to the podcast, episode 14. We're in the building. Speed up my intros. So this is a recovery-based podcast, lifestyle, motivational. Pretty much, if you're seeking some motivation, or you struggle with anything internally, if you're living with a limited belief system, if you got any type of negative narrative, negative self-talk that tells you that you can't, this is the podcast. It's going to tell you that that's bullshit. You're not a product of your circumstances or your past. You have full control of what's to come in your future. So what we like to do is bring on some guests. I have an amazing guest in the building tonight. One of my favorite fucking women on the planet. Miss Kim Costa is in the building. So just so you know, she was asking prior, what's the format? Everybody asks that, and there is no format. We just go, we just flow. Pretty much I panicked the first 5 minutes trying to get my thoughts to function and to develop a narrative that we want to talk about. And then sometimes we land, and then sometimes we go off the rails. But I think it's good we have a female on the show. Because we've been male dominated recently, and you are a powerful woman in recovery, and I love you to death, and I also love who you are as a human. Like, my favorite people in the world are like people that are willing to get in the trenches and just like they get clean, and they go on this process, this evolution of self, and they don't forget, and they go back and grab other people and bring them along with them. And not only that, but they get excited to do it, and they invest in people, because all this is it's the human-to-human connection, right? I always say the antidote to this disease is connection, honesty, and relentless communication. But without connection, there is no opportunity to be honest, right? Without the honesty, there is no opportunity for freedom, right? That freedom internally. The way that we develop a solution is through that connection. The way that I get free from me is having the ability to tell the fucking truth, but I need people to tell the truth to. And first and foremost, I need people to trust in to tell the truth. And there's so many women that look up to you and just fucking love you to death. And you're just a huge power in the recovery world. And I fucking love that. And it's tough because for women in general, right? It's tough. Like I watch the process that women go down trying to find that, and it's a different element than what the men have. I think it's a lot easier for men in recovery. I truly do. And part of, I guess, what I want to transition into with especially you is we can talk into like barriers to entry for women in recovery, and like what are those struggles and pitfalls, and like what was your struggles and pitfalls coming around, and like the barriers to entry, like what was presented as roadblocks that made it hard for you early on, and like what was your process like in the beginning? And then we'll flip off that, and I'll give some of my perspective, but I'm going to let you talk, because usually I just rant for 40 minutes.
No, please, rant.
Well, the joke is whenever I have people on here, I go, just so you know, I brought you on this podcast to listen to me for an hour and a half. This dude we brought Charlie the Hustler on last week, and the comments were in there like, yo, those dudes need to fucking...
Like, yo, I tuned in to listen to Charlie. They talk too much. I was like, thumbs down.
Yeah, I didn't fucking start a podcast because I can't talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so what was the process like for you? What do you perceive as the barriers to entry, and like what would you like to see change, or like what is your mindset with it?
I feel like a lot's changed since.
Yeah.
When I got clean, I was 41, and I felt like that was ancient compared to what else I saw, like in that especially in that first meeting that I went to. Elm Street, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Shout out Elm Street.
Yeah, always will shout out Elm Street.
First meeting I ever went to was there.
Yeah, Dennis. Yeah, so my nephew Bobby brought me.
Yep.
And it was scary. I looked around the room, and there were kids in that meeting that were in playpens while I was getting fucked up with their mothers.
Yeah.
And I almost left, and I'm glad I didn't. And You know, something just brought me back to that, like the roadblock that you were talking about. Some people are not as welcoming as we are suggested to be when people come in. And I remember who walked right by me. Like to this day, I remember who walked right by me, and I remember who didn't. But I also remember that there was more people around then. It seems like it's kind of, it feels like it started to thin out a little bit. And I notice a lot of women, once they get their families and their degrees, you know, they cut their meeting attendance like down to nothing. And then they're just clean with all of the gifts that recovery is given with no recovery. And that scares me because a lot of women I know who have become very successful while like clawing their way out of the gutter, don't give themselves that reprieve, you know, a couple of nights a week anymore. And it's a lot of responsibility. All those gifts, like with recovery comes all those gifts inside and out, and a shitload of responsibility to be able to maintain it and give it away.
Of course, it's the blessings then become the weapon that the disease uses to lure us away. I watch people take that bait. It's so often, even with the men. I know you say you see that a lot with the women, but I see people, like you said, clawing to get this. And then obviously you put in the work, the results they're there. And then those things become the valid justifications for us to no longer keep our foundation in order. And then you see a lot of those same people decide, like, I can smoke weed or
I can drink.
It's usually wine. I want to have wine with my steak.
Yeah.
And
I don't want wine.
I don't either, but for some reason that my disease always presents to me a relapse that has to do with wine. I think it's because I don't want it, and it seems so like
innocent.
Innocent.
We were actually talking about that earlier when you said wine. For the longest time when people would mention wine, I was like, you serious? You know, and it just was closed-minded back then. And when I had relapsed, you know, years ago, that's one of the things I went to, and I was doing all this artsy shit, and I was finding myself drinking wine every night, right?
Sophisticated.
So here's the thing, and it's not trying to get detailed about that I was doing out and drinking wine, but what it is anytime I relapsed, wine or drinking it sounded friendlier than like shooting heroin and robbing stores. And
it does.
Right? So my head would tell me, you know, yeah, I can just drink. And, you know, without getting descriptive, you talking about what you were saying as far as women, and I feel like that too. It was harder for women. And years ago, there was a big bunch that got their life together, and I remember just disappearing, and I felt bad because we had the men's meeting, and then we'd go to Snuff's house to eat, right? All the guys were getting together on Wednesday nights, and I remember women that I knew that was staying clean were like almost like envious of that, and I felt bad, like they didn't have access to something like that. And it took like years before that the women's meeting started. I think it was in Stoneham or something like that.
Me and a bunch of women started that.
I think it had the same format.
It's
meditation,
the exact same format.
which is so important, you know. Yeah. But when you just said that, because bringing up Elm Street, and that's literally the first meeting I ever went to. I also, a chunk of my childhood, I grew up in that neighborhood around that.
Yeah.
So I remember being 23 years old. You know, you shared about, because I'm going to be 41. What's funny is where I think now, sitting here at 40, it's like I'm just beginning my life. Right?
Yeah.
But yet we come in and it's like, oh, I'm washed up, or I'm, too old for this. Or what's funny though, and what I love about you is that when you started to get comfortable and actually get some clean time, we were sharing this before the podcast started, sometimes I'd just be feeling a certain way in my head, like, what the fuck is going on in here tonight? Like, let's be honest, we've all been in a meeting where there's just some shit maybe being shared, or just like not recovery, right? And you'd raise your hand, or there's just some stuff you'd get off your chest that I always just really appreciate. I mean, that's how we are as friends. We're able to be blunt. Sure. in that raw, where I was like, I remember a couple of times literally being like, yes.
No,
it's
well,
almost
Kim-
like you're speaking.
Kim definitely says out loud what people think in silence.
Yes, and that you'd get like, yeah, like you know what I mean? You know when there's other motherfuckers in the room because there's the side comments. You know, they're not cutting you off; they're agreeing with you. You know, and there's a couple times where I was like I felt free as if I raised my hand, right? And I've had that happen a bunch of times in meetings, whether it's just I don't know, something that's motivating that needed to get off my chest, or just venting and being like some of the shit that was going on, you know. And I'm the same way. I remember people that were inviting. I mean, I know for a long time people would say to me, "You don't seem that inviting," and I didn't like hearing that, and I try to change that over time. You know.
No, for sure. But so regardless of that, you're one of those powers of example now, and it's like my favorite women in recovery, like you being one, Nicole, and all that. And the common denominator between a lot of the women that I watch now is that they're not willing to cash in the chips early, right? Because you see a lot of people cash in the chips early. They take like the benefits of just like, inevitably we stop using drugs on a daily basis for any length of time. Our life will get better, but that doesn't mean internally we get better, right? Because there's this whole like, we have to take the time to progress our mind along with our life. And then once you become a student to recovery and you understand the type of internal changes that can be made and what happens when we make these internal changes, it opens up our mind to new possibilities of like what could be. And I watch you go through that process. Like, first off, if you don't know Kim, she's a viral superstar, you know, from the hilarious Masshole video. She's also an author. Why did I just fucking eat shit trying to author and author? It's stand-up comic. She's a spy, like and I say to you all the time, you're gonna be a star. Like, I know it, I feel it, and I watch you go through going through this process. Like, you're not willing to settle for any type of mediocrity in life. You're literally like on that fucking grind and doing the work, and that it goes in conjunction with true recovery, right? Because there's a difference between true recovery and like sitting in meetings and just fucking. Because let's not get it twisted, like. People have this misconception like, oh, you go to meetings and you get a sponsor and all this shit, but it's much more. It's because I've been to meetings and had a sponsor and I still stayed sick and my life still sucks. So essentially, it's not practice makes perfect. It's perfect practice that makes perfect. But in order to practice perfectly, you have to be a student of what the fuck's going on with you. And once you become a student and you start to do this work, the change in perception of yourself and the world around you is the most profound change that happens. And when you start to see life as this fucking oyster that you can just go out there and just fucking get after, like, it becomes so much. I say this now, it's not just about getting clean and staying clean. There's a third component, and it's about the development of a life worth living and to go find path and purpose and to fucking chase that shit wholeheartedly. And I watch you do that. I watch Nicole. I watch you guys not willing to settle for less. And I also watch with you doing that, the inspiration that comes with that, with people that are drawn to you, because that's a magnetic force. That's a light that brings people in. And it's not easy, right? This process isn't easy. Nothing good comes easy, right? But there's a willingness of acceptance of responsibility with that, understanding that whatever we want to attain in life comes with work. And I see you guys doing this now, and I watch you, and I've seen you've had the A&E producers wanting to develop fucking full shows around you. You just talking to me about Lenny Clark wanting to develop a sitcom with you playing his wife, and that's the magnetic force that you have. And you still haven't even scratched the surface of your potential, which is my favorite shit about you.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what my whole purpose is.
Of
like,
course.
I still, like, I want, like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what my purpose is.
Yeah.
And Jim Carrey said that his purpose was to relieve others of their concern. And I feel like that's it. That's what it is. When he said that, it just made me stop in my tracks. Like, I believe that's what it is. And I don't know the how. I don't know how to get there.
Yeah.
And there were things good. There were things brewing, and then this corona happened. And everything, we were working on something else with Lifetime. And we were supposed to film something in Malden at the end of March. And Sam, who you met, called me and told me that Lifetime shut down. He's like, they sent everybody home. And then he called me a couple weeks later and told me they got a new creative director and she threw every pilot in the trash.
Jesus.
Yeah. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to be on Lifetime.
Yeah.
Because I'm on in between a Christmas movie with the adult cast of Full House. I'm good. I thought of that, like Lifetime, like I want to be on, I want to be out there. I want to be like, out there, but Lifetime?
It's like, dude, I get forced to watch those. My girl makes me watch Lifetime movies.
Yeah. So your girlfriend would watch our show and nobody else I know would watch it.
Well, my wife's mother, she would also be watching that show
my
too.
mother likes Lifetime too.
Yeah,
What's
yeah,
funny
so-
about Lifetime, you know how many Lifetime movies I've been forced to watch, and then my girl's attention span, and I'm like, will you keep it quiet? I'm trying to see. She's like, are you fucking serious?
Oh.
Because I just started watching. It's a horrible movie, but I need to see the ending.
What,
Yeah.
the Vanessa Williams version of Ebenezer Scrooge.
Well, getting back to what you just said, that you don't know the how, and this is my thing, man. It's not for us to know the how. The how will always work itself out. It's the identification of the what, and even if you don't have a clear picture of the what, that what is just a feeling of something more. That's all that needs to be identified, and as long as we're open to that, I believe the universe, God, however you look at it, is going to use you as a vessel how it sees fit.
Yeah.
And if your identification it comes with what Jim Carrey said, say it again.
I'm here to relieve others of their concern.
If that's what it is, how you'll be used in doing that, I know for sure it'll be something amazing. I watch you do that on a ground level basis without cameras on. I see your ability to turn someone's solemn demeanor into a fucking belly laugh. I see how you can change a room's dynamic within seconds of being in it, from tight to loose and with laughter, and I can also see that happening on a larger scale.
Yeah.
And I mean, the important part too is like you're at this point where you're at now, right? With these things, like finding, like internally that you've had that identification, right? So there's no settling for less. But how do we arrive to this point though, Kim? Like for women watching this and stuff like that, and even men too, because the biggest struggle, especially with addicts, is the unraveling of the limited belief system, right? Because we come in here with such a, it's so minuscule. I ask the question, what do you want? To so many people, and it literally short circuits their fucking brains when they try to think of it, because their mind hasn't let them think in terms of that for so long that their automatic response is, I just
want to be happy.
That's it.
Yeah.
I just want to be happy. I don't really care. I want an apartment, or just want to get my license back, or I just want to get off probation. Like that's as far as their fucking mind will let them think. But when you understand this disease and the effect that it has, it stems in our thinking, right? And in our the narrative in which we talk to ourselves, in which we essentially live true to, because of the disease, because of all that suppressing of all this shit internally, we develop this limited belief system. And if we don't take the time to do the work on that and unravel the narrative, then our reality will still be what that belief system is. But when you change that belief system, the world around us changes. But we have to come to a point where we get to that. There's a process, there's steps that we must take and all that. So what has your process been like? Like, let's get a little bit of the transition from the Kim that walked in to, I mean, I don't need you the whole, but like the bullet points and the pivotal moments and parts that like led you to the place where you're at now,
Well, when I walked in, when I first got clean, I didn't even think I deserved to be clean. Whatever that meant, at the time. I didn't deserve any peace. I didn't deserve happiness, or like it was just empty. So I was empty. That void took up most of my body. And so it was not an overnight process. It took a really long time. Like I hung around for a really long time, not doing much. Things eventually rubbed off. when I started working up here, was when I recommitted. So can we talk about, like, can I say
Whatever
NA
the
and
fuck
stuff?
you want.
So I was like bouncing back and forth between AA and NA. And when I came up here to work, I committed fully to NA and got a sponsor. And I was like 6 years clean when I started working here, or 5 years clean. And my life was pretty good, but whatever was missing inside at 41 years old with 3 days clean was still missing. So I'm just trying to, there was nothing in here. And whenever I speak, and I'm not trying to like fucking act like I'm at a meeting or anything, but whenever I share with anybody, I always say I walked around my whole life like it was 3 o'clock in the morning in my heart, 24 hours a day. All right. So that's probably why it took me like a second to, I remembered that. And so I still kind of lived like I was using, like I was really irresponsible. I thought like I was still using, like how much I didn't love myself or respect myself. And, you know, I still might have been like a little talk and no walk. And my relationships still were just as fucking toxic as they were when I was using. And I'm clean. And I don't have drugs to, you know, comfort me when these relationships fall apart. And you were around for that. That was a fucking mess. And so I started sitting in on the groups. You know, when I first started working up here, you know, I'd sit in, I'd listen about Jack Canfield. And there was a video that Justin played in the morning. It was Les Brown, and it was called Through Hell. And if you run around with losers, you will wind up a loser. And I listened to that every day on my way up here. And from that, if you go on YouTube and you start like looking up motivational videos, it's a whole world. A whole world. What do we?
They were all up on that wall.
Yeah. And I know I couldn't see who was up there at first.
Well, because I got the light blind in your face.
So I started meditating more. I got a sponsor who was really super gentle. And I wasn't used to that. I'm not used to people speaking to me gently. And as I learned how to love myself more and respect myself more, all those toxic relationships, whether they were platonic or otherwise, those people have disappeared. And that's basically just how it's gone. And then I moved, not up here, but I moved like a half hour away from where I grew up. It was so important for me to live and die in Medford. Like, I'm almost 50. Like, none of my friends even live there anymore. Like, what am I fighting for? Like it's not even the same stores. Like, it's just
Shatter an
Lakash's
old belief system.
yeah. And I had such a small mind. Like, I was so small minded, like for a really long time, clean. And it was uncomfortable and it was painful. And, you know, so just piggybacking off of the different subjects like Jack Canfield to Esther Hicks and Louise Hayes and Les Brown, and then all the guys that come along with Les Brown. And I read A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. That was hard to read. That was a hard read.
Did you read it or the audio version?
No, I have the book. Like, I'm on like page 200. Like, it's hard to get through. And so once Corona started and I was stuck in my house, like, I spent like the first month, and I thought I was pretty together, like, before all this happened. Like, I'm not lonely, You know what I mean? I live by myself. I have a dog. Like, my heart's full all the time. I worked really hard to get to this.
Yeah.
Like, my outside successes, like material things, are nothing compared to how much I love, like, being in my skin, and, you know, how much I respect myself. Like, I'm a brand new person. Like, I feel like a brand new person. And like, I appreciate everything I've done for myself. And I know other people benefit from it. And so that whole law of attraction, you get back what you put out and everything. And my vibration is super duper high. And those are the only kinds of people that are around me now.
Well, it's good. I mean, I wanted to go into my phone because I wanted to read you, because I read a ton, and I constantly have to feed my mind the counter argument to whatever the bullshit is that my disease is gonna want to say to me. But
Well, my disease still tells me that I'm too old to get famous and rich. And sometimes I'm still scared I'm going to die in the old lady projects. So that's what my disease tells me.
I love seeing people chase.
Alone with the clapper.
yeah,
The clapper light.
When you said that you were going to pursue comedy and just, it's something that you're interested in doing and had a passion for, I love seeing people walk through that. You know, there's a little bit of risk. I remember being like, oh, I don't know if this is going to happen. You're still saying your head tells you that. I've been on my path with chasing my artwork and just wanting to do more with it, right? And then you brought up Corona. It's funny you said that because I was down in Florida at the time. I'm doing a line of work that at this point I was just so fed up with doing. And I was coming home every day from work, working 10 hours out in the Florida sun, miserable, right? And me and Chris had been talking, and it started to change where it was looking like I was going to make this move up here, right? And then I started seeing the world, you know, through social media, the new, whatever it was, start to unravel, right? Where I was like, wow, there's just so many people that are not okay in their own skin, right? Because all their freedoms were taken. And this isn't like in a cocky way. It in the beginning, it really didn't affect me. I mean, we had food in the house. We were able to, right, bare necessities, whatever. We weren't going without. And I just was in this back room working on artwork, working on ideas for groups, right? Talking with addicts, former clients. It's almost like I was preparing myself. That's why it just moved me hearing you say, like, what you have going on now and how you feel about yourself. See, the way that I handle myself newly in recovery, I couldn't live like that anymore. Like, meaning, like, just meetings stopped working for me a long time ago.
Yeah.
yeah,
Right? Toxic relationships. I'm in a relationship now. We've been together almost 5. Before that, this dude will tell you some of the shit that I was doing and acting and putting myself in. I remember word for word, you were like, dude, your life is not coincide. It's not, it's just not what an addict in recovery that has a long time clean should be doing, basically. Right? And then to take a look at that and realize I was just basically signing up for more pain, that I had to take a look at some serious shit. And it's funny because my sponsor's the same. He's like the opposite of me. Drew's very mild-mannered. He has a funny personality, but he's just very monotone and chill, and I've needed that. He's been my sponsor for years, you know? And all while this was going on, I really just indulged more into my artwork and creating and just seeking out that positive content. I'd find myself, instead of listening to Wu-Tang and Biggie and all this music I love, don't get me wrong, but I was listening for like hours on end of podcasts or these guys doing this before I came up, right? Mm-hmm. I was a big fan of this before I was even a part of it and promoting my friends. When I see friends pursuing, right, we know Steve H., he also pursued comedy, and I knew him from way back. And I remember him saying to me, because I was like, I want to get back into cutting hair. I had never at the time cut hair in a barbershop clean, right? A couple years before, I was always make money, get high with it. I wanted to be a barber and be a successful barber and use that platform, right, of people coming in to get a haircut and talk to guys. We know a lot of people go to the barbershop that were in halfway houses and all this stuff, right? And pursue the artwork. And I've just never stopped. I've grinded. That's been my path and purpose. And I love seeing other people, right? When someone's like, I want to become a dancer. Go for it. But not only am I going to say go for it, I'm going to be in your ear every day to see you fucking put work in. Someone wants to go pursue comedy when you're a funny motherfucker. And right, I used to watch that video and send it to people. The one that went viral. It's hilarious. It's still funny to this day.
And that doesn't even show like her, like that. Yeah, you're funny in that video, but that doesn't even give you
I think it's funnier.
Justice.
I really think it's nothing compared to like what I'm
know
capable of.
Oh, yeah.
But we know you more than that. I think that's why it's a little bit more funny than maybe someone would be like, yeah, that's funny. She's funny. But it's like, no, we know your personality, right? So to see someone chase that and chase a dream, like you're saying, oh, I'm too old. Listen, I always was like, oh, I want to be this like well-known graffiti writer and do all this stuff. And I would run that by certain people. See, the thing is, at the time, up until that, I was running it by the wrong people.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, you tag?
Yeah.
Oh, you're into tagging.
You scribble on walls.
Yo, that shit that I see when you take, right? Or then when I had that conversation with someone that had pursued their dreams and was like, if you want to do that, you can. Wow. And it's weird how your mind can go from someone saying, don't do that. That's not safe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, or maybe they had a fucking passion or a goal that they just never went after.
Yeah.
So when we surround ourselves with people that want to see us do good and see good in us, that's what I do on a daily basis. We're talking to different addicts, especially new ones. Like we were just saying earlier, we had this discussion the other day. I asked a bunch of people, what do you want to be? And someone actually said happy. And to see the person's fit, you can just tell with everything in them, they just want to be happy. And I answered that question years ago too and was just like, I want to be happy.
Yeah.
I want to be okay with what goes on up here.
Yeah.
But I always thought it was like, I could buy this, right? I used to chase it from drinking, right? Chase it with getting high or getting new stuff or what I drove or having a nice apartment. It was always like that shit. Now, I'm staying in his guest bedroom, right? Talk about a friend, right? Come up. You can figure out the other stuff after. I know what you enjoy. Right? And we've been friends since the beginning when no one really believed in our fucking dreams. Imagine that. We're still here.
Yep.
So I love seeing other people. And I don't have to be their friends. Someone admits to me they're an alcoholic or an addict and then also says they're into music or they like poetry. I got people doing fucking, homework assignments that have to do with poetry. Let's get this, you know what I mean? Let's get the ball going. They might look at it as like, oh, he's making me do homework. No, you got to see the bigger picture.
No.
Getting you back into your passion.
Yeah.
It's the importance of people, though. It's the perfect segue because I'm reading this book. It talks about, did you know, according to the research of why can't I speak tonight?
I don't know what's going on.
I'd like to buy a vowel.
Hey, first off, fuck you, Ryan, if you're watching this, because he talks mad shit about me stuttering on my words. But according to research by social psychologist David McCullough of Harvard, the people with whom you habitually associate are called your reference group, and these people determine as much as 95% of your success or failure in life. How fucked is that? Think of that. It's essentially pretty much the old premise that we become the combined average of the 5 people we hang around with the most. That's what that's based off of, that philosophy. And it's in this book, it's talking about taking the first step towards success is taken when you refuse to be captive of the environment you first find yourself in. And it's about stepping out of that. Like you're talking about being in Medford, me, Lynn Mass for life, and now I'm fucking New Hampshire. Live free or die, baby.
Live in Billerica.
Yeah.
Billerica.
And there's 40 acres of woods behind my house.
I want to go deeper in the forest now.
So I'm sitting on my deck, like smoking. I hear one leaf rustle. I'm like, I can't see anything. The wood, it's just so like, it's like miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that shit now.
Yeah, me too. I used to always be more comfortable with the orange line going by.
I know. I liked sirens. Sirens put me to sleep.
Oh, I used to say that. I'm a city boy.
Yeah.
Now I want to just live.
I don't care. Now I drive like the long way to work, and I'm like driving through Middleton. I'm like, I'd probably live here too.
So it's funny. Just real quick, she said something about the sirens. We're at the men's meeting. What's today? Thursday. So Tuesday, we're at the meeting, and there's a meditation, and this is how I know I've grown. In years past, if someone came in late or just any type of noise, I'm in my head, I can't focus. Twice, fucking right on Main Street, there's just sirens going by. It did, and I literally was like, just part of my meditation.
I know, I've seen you flip out at a meeting when kids are playing with the toys.
Oh, God.
Flip out.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck is happening right now?
Oh, that's a whole nother, that was going above and beyond. There was like they were allowing kids to like smash toys over and over and not. And I just,
Oh yeah.
But I was also
That's
newly
different.
coming back, I think, back then.
I think you
that-
were just coming back.
So it's, you know,
So going back to like part of what you got, I want to tie back in because you guys were moving in a good direction. But the importance of like, it's just the means ain't just enough. When you're on a path of self-discovery, right? Like you talk about the incorporation of guys like Les Brown, Jack Canfield. For me, it's the list goes on. Like I'm a seeker of knowledge. The more I can feed this fucked up mind, it adds new elements into the circulation of thought, right? And I have to feed it positivity. Because no matter how much work I do on myself, the cycle of thought never goes away. So I got to make sure I feed it the right amount of shit. It's the subconscious mind. What I talk about, the subconscious mind doesn't decipher between what's good or bad, fact or fiction. It just takes the information that we feed it and brings it into the physical world. Which means that if like you said, if I'm around negative people, if I'm in Facebook, in negative fucking posts, then that's going to become my reality. That's going to become my perception, whether it's conscious or subconscious. It just, when I'm in touch with my energy and my vibration, and like if I'm doing work and I'm around like-minded people, and then you can, I'm very much of an empath, right? So especially when I'm doing good, you ever have someone walk into a room and you can feel their fucking.
I leave. I don't care where I am. Yeah.
I'm the same way, but that's being in touch with your your true self, right? In essence, I call that being in a flow state. And the best part about being in that flow state when we put on work is that you start to be led by this instead of this. And when you're being led by this, the world opens up. When you're being led by this, you're very pessimist. The world is hard to navigate. But for me, when I'm at my best, it's essentially I call it and I tell my wife all the time, God calls, I answer. Or you want to call it the universe calls, I answer. Whatever it is, but I'm always led by a feeling, and I get called Crazy Chris all the time. But I don't give a fuck, because that feeling has led me to the most beautiful places with the most beautiful people my whole life. And I've never known the how, right? And people get so caught up in the how of so many things, which leaves them stuck like in the same spot for long lengths of time. But if you can just move past the how and just start to be led, right? Be going into the flow state. We never know what one door leads to, right? People think that if it's not the exact door that they want, that they've identified, that they're, no, it's, you think dancing, I thought was going to lead me to a treatment center? I mean, even though you think that I thought that the fucking roofers union was going to lead me to dancing. It's just a matter of forward motion, right? It's forward motion with the understanding of I want something more. But there's also I think it's Les Brown that says accept where you're at, but take responsibility for where it is that you want to go. The responsibility is continuous motion, right? Continuous continuous learning, continuous feeding of our mind, the stuff that we need to be fed. And any student to recovery, when you understand what this shit is, right? The disease of addiction, anybody watching this, alcoholic or whatever the fuck, you understand that you suffer from something centered in the mind, right? When you understand how the mind works, it's the cycle of thought comes through. Untreated alcoholism or a disease essentially works like we start to attach truth to these fucked up thoughts. Those fucked up thoughts now dictate to us the emotions that we feel. Now these fucked up emotions dictate to us our interactions with people in the world around us. That's a fucked up way to live, because there is no consistency of the thoughts that come in. We're starting to try to sort through this bullshit on our own. So now we're attaching truths to the stuff that isn't truth. We're feeling the emotions of shit that's not real, and we're living a reality of it now. And that creates a narrative. And then we go on this whole like finger pointing shit, victim mentality. Yeah. It's this person's fault. It's my trauma from my childhood. Because my dad died. It's because, and we start to finger point the reasons why our lives aren't where we want them to be. And that makes me sad watching people live like that, because I know I lived like that for a long time. And I wasted my first almost 5 years clean like that. Like you said, you got started at a certain point. It was the same for me.
Yeah.
I went on that path of stipulations on my happiness. I stayed clean chasing. My disease just sent me on a different run. It was like, all right, you're not trying to use drugs no more?
Use everything else. Use everything else.
You're going to do this. Hey, skinny boy, get on just steroids. Why? Because that gets the ladies. And then I get steroids. It's like, well, they don't want you without a fucking apartment. Get out of the sober house. And it's like I had the apartment. They're like, dude, you don't have a car. Get a car. And I got a car, and it's like, you don't have nice clothes. And it just always put a bar. Happiness was always projected into the future.
Yeah.
Temporary fixes.
And then the saddest point I've ever been in recovery was clean with 4.5 years wanting to fucking kill myself. And because I was still so miserable and I was hidden in plain sight. Because there's nothing worse than while I'm on that, feeling like shit, people around me that didn't understand the disease telling me that they're fucking proud of me. Because externally it looked good, right? Because externally they saw me get the car and the job and the apartment and all this shit. So now I have people that love me telling me, hey, whatever you're doing, keep it up. Keep it up. I'm proud of you. Look at you. You're doing so good. Look at you. So I'm getting validation. But who I am when no one's watching with who I'm trying to be perceived as is two fucking different people with two different sets of friends living two different lives.
Yeah.
And that was the most painful process I've ever been a part of. Because at least when I was shooting up, I was like Gollum. I'd come out every now and then to fucking get what I had. And I was an isolated user in a room, dark, chain smoking cigarettes, fucking watching. I'd rent fucking
Family Guy.
Yeah, no, for me, it was a Sopranos DVD. I would
Just watch the whole series.
Yeah, all of it.
Yep.
All of it. When I was clean living like that, I was like unleashed on society, having to do this fucking dance all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Trying to make people comfortable with me while I'm uncomfortable in my own skin. You talked about like the self-love that you practice now and being okay with you. Like I was 4.5 years hating myself with major low self-esteem, with vanity issues, body dysmorphia, like fucking brushing my teeth in the dark, like every insecurity in the world, all while trying to come off confident, trying to be funny, trying to come off cool, trying to be a part of jokes, breaking balls. And then when my balls got broken back, being fucking devastated, right? Because I was super sensitive. All this shit while nobody knew. That's why I always talk about that same thing. If I told you the truth about me, would you still love me? That's saying why it rings so deep inside of me, because I was desperate for someone to know the truth about me, but it wasn't in alignment with how I was setting my life up to be perceived. Mm-hmm. So it would contradict what I spent 4 years creating this picture for everybody else. Mm-hmm. So I trapped myself. That's the trap that the disease sets up, right? And I was locked. I call that mental prison, internal prison, with me, the only person with the key. And I watched so many people go down that same path. My life was a direct reflection of my internal, a fucking shit show, right? I got robbed clean. I tried to sell steroids. Fucking everybody knew where I hid it. Now I owe this dude $3,000. Fucking I'm in the hole. I'm borrowing money from my mom. Dude, it was a fucking train wreck. Dying inside. And just that transition from, going from that to the learning about what actual recovery is. And I remember the first night I went to the meeting, I was in so much pain. I had made the decision that I was going to drink. And then some traumatic stuff happened in our lives. Our father passed away. I had 4.5 years clean and everything got flipped upside down. And I remember like trying to be like a source of strength, and everybody. The only reason I stayed clean during that time is because I couldn't have my mother lose me and her husband at the same time. So Joey Hayes brought me to that. Back when I hated Joey, fucking hated his guts. He came by my house with Keith Mack, and I remember hanging up the phone crying. And Joe asked me if I wanted to go to a meeting. He had the audacity to come in the house when he knew that I hated him, and the audacity to talk to me when I was crying over. It's like, be careful who you judge around here, you know? And that him asking me that saved my life, because I said yes. Somehow I said yes. And I went to that meeting, and for the first time I experienced, for the first time ever, something in a meeting. I raised my hand and I said, fuck it. And I said, this is who I am. This is what I'm really doing. This is how I'm really living. This is what you think I am. This is who I really am. This is the fucking fucked up shit I do. This is what I think of this person, what I think of you, what I think of me. I lie, I cheat, I manipulate. I'm fucking dying inside. I hate my face. I hate my teeth. And I just went crazy, ape shit in this meeting. And I remember the fear prior to me raising my hand and thinking that at the end of this, I was going to flip the table, walk out, and never go to a meeting again, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't. I put my hand down, and I remember the first time ever in fucking recovery, something happened. Well, in a meeting, the first time ever, I got relief. That knot that I had been carrying for who the fuck knows how long, that tightness, tension that I just assumed would always be there, it loosened a little bit. And that was the first time I experienced, like, the freedom that this has to offer. That's why, like, since that day, obviously, I met a guy that night. I ended up going to I began the process of step work and recovery and everything along with that. But that's where I always talk about our freedom lies within our transparency and truth, right? And allowing ourselves to be, in spite of what that looks like. Sometimes we're train wrecks. Sometimes we're out of our fucking minds. Sometimes we fall short. Our responsibility isn't to the action, it's to the truth in the action, right? We can't hold ourselves to this standard of perfection. It's like we're gonna be fuck ups. So giving ourselves permission to fall short because we're gonna, and being okay with telling the truth around that changed everything. I didn't realize, and I'll shut the fuck up in a minute. I didn't realize that me being honest could change my life so drastically in the way that I like, just me telling the truth. It's began the process of unraveling the narrative. It de-weaponized the disease with the ammunition that it used against me, which was me, right? There was no more suppression of all this shit, the guilt and shame. I no longer classified myself as uniquely fucked up. And when I got rid of that clutter and I began to get clarity, then the world opened up to me. The spirit that had been dimmed out for so long started talking to me again in terms of like, hey, you should pursue dance. You should do this. You should. And then all of a sudden I started to see life different because there wasn't all that shit inside. The self-love stuff, the self-care, like the dialogue from which I talk, the way I talked to myself was because I was the only one going through it. Right. So there was no counter argument because my presentation of who I was to people was that I was okay. So therefore there was no exposure of truth. Therefore I could not get the help that I needed, so that began a process of what this is. I don't even know how the fuck I got on that rant.
It's all good though, because you just spoke your truth and that's your story. And I was there for it. And I still get something out of it to this day. And the most thing that I get out of it is that I did the opposite, right? I had years clean. I was miserable. Seemed like I was doing good to so many people. In some ways I was. But I wasn't being honest, right? I had all these years clean. A lot of the things that I had said that I wanted to do, that I was very passionate about, I had done and were in my life, pursuing art shows and a clothing line. And I wanted to create and put my artwork on shirts and get that out there. And the first year I did that, I remember being able to meet DJ Khaled, right? High school friend of mine, Maverick. Shout out to Maverick, 94.5. Got to meet
Nina Sky.
Yep, Nina Sky. Got to do these shirts for these people, right? And travel. Got to be in a couple magazines for graffiti. But my life wasn't that positive outside of the halls, right? I started, a relationship had ended. Now I'm single and have years clean. Now I embarked on a whole nother world, right? Now I'm just feeding the fucking disease. I didn't want to drink or get high for a long time. People like Chris and my friendship with him, we had different apartments over there. We always knew each other's truth. And then I even started to veer away from that. See, that's where it got evil. Now it had a chance to really get me, right? And I'm just a firm believer. For me, it didn't matter how much step work I had done up until that point. It didn't matter how many commitments we had done, convention committees, all this great stuff, right? That I used to kind of make fun of when I was first coming around. Now I'm embarking on all this stuff. Well, all that stuff stopped. Now the way I'm talking to myself is completely different. Now there's some deaths, right? Some people that meant something to me, right? Now I'm handling deaths a little different. Now relationships are toxic as fuck. So I'm causing some serious pain. And then I'm keep signing up for it. Now the narrative, it's changing. Now, like we said in the beginning, joking with wine, right? Catching a case and going to shoot heroin or robbing a store or something drastic like that where my addiction has taken me in the past. That didn't sound good, but drinking socially did. And one of my most important friendships to this day, right? I started to veer away from that.
Yeah, I remember when you told me in the barbershop that. I remember when you told me that you relapsed, I cried in your barber chair.
Yeah.
I remember that. It was like one of the most devastating, outside of like people passing away, which was obviously super traumatic. It was like process of having to mourn someone that's still in existence, right? Because I knew that our dynamic would not be like the same for a while. Like and there was only so much that I could do at that moment. But it was that, like you said, that.
Oh, actually, we did have a talk. We did have a talk prior to me relapsing, right? But what's fucked up is that even when I got out of the car after that conversation, I still was indulging in the same lifestyle and stuff that I still went down that path. And I remember telling him and Scotty, and they both, at 2 different times, but both crying. I mean, talk about friendship, because we know when people relapse, they might not come back.
Yeah.
Right? And even with Ears Clean, I basically said, fuck NA, fuck the halls. My mind went right to like, fuck all the people in there. No one reached out, right? I'll just get super negative. So I get a lot out of what he just said, because that's the exact opposite. You come to a point where we just own everything. But see, the main point of that, though, is that when I did finally come back, all of that stuff, it was so obvious to me where I fucked up. So now that I've been back, I do what I enjoy, right? I do what I enjoy. And one of the main things I enjoy is seeing other people understand that we have to change up here. For me, it's not just meeting. So when I talk my story and own my truth, I can't fuck up the truth if I just tell you about me.
Yeah.
There's nothing I have to remember other than stories to plug into of like, hey, this is what it was like for me. But I don't have to remember a lie. I don't have to sound good. See, the best thing that sounds good is someone's truth. So I just fucking own that. And I literally, my favorite thing in life, other than accomplishing my own goals, is seeing someone else bring up something that they're passionate about. You know, when I seen you the other day and you know, when you just said a few minutes ago, you're like, I don't know what the path, I think you're already on it.
Yeah.
I think going back into the field and helping people, sometimes just being that spark of energy, right? We have, I mean, all 3 of us, we have like 6 sense of humor. That shit, people, it's like contagious. Recovery is fucking fun. And for a long time, I thought it was just a meeting, step work, and get a sponsor, right? All this like just robotic shit, right? And it is so fun if you wrap your head around it.
With the right people is fun.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is.
That's the thing. And part of why I say, because I talked about, I don't know if we talked about this last week, but the importance of your truth, right? And putting your truth out there. Because, so I had people ask me, like, aren't you afraid people are going to judge you? And I said, no, I embrace that. People are going to judge you. But then they're going to people that don't. And those are your people. You have to sort through the room in order to find who your people are. Me and Nicole connected because it was someone was like, you want to know someone that's really fucked up, Nicole? Chris is fucked up. You should talk to him. And I was like, oh, you're fucked. We had a conversation of how warped and twisted we were. She became my person, right? Like, your truth will isolate you from some people because that's just where they're at in their process, but it'll also connect you to some of the most important motherfuckers you're ever going to meet, right? And that's the benefit of that. Expect that people are going to judge. It doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter. I know for a fact my truth is going to isolate some people. I'm going to get judged by some other people. But then there's going to be people in there that needed it, that are going to identify and that I'm going to connect with. They're going to be either integral parts from my life or for their life. I don't know who it's for sometimes. Sometimes it's for me. Sometimes it's for them. I don't ask the questions. I just stay responsible to where I'm at. And I got to take a pee-pee break real quick because I'm going to piss my pants. Bam, we nailed it. We're back. Jay had to pee. He's got a weak bladder.
Dude, definitely.
Yeah. So once again, me and Jay Brandt, we bring guests in to listen to us talk. Just fucking, I don't know how to shut that off. I don't know. If anybody has any advice to how I can shut the fuck up, let me know. It's just something I just.
Pretty sure you didn't start a podcast to be quiet.
Yeah. But to segue back to you, Kim, I mean, advice for women in early recovery, man, coming in here, they're scared, trying to find their people, stuff like that. Like, or even as far as, because I like to go back, especially, and I ask people this, like, what advice would you give to yourself? You know, like, if you could go back and talk to you when you began this journey. You know, I know what I would say to myself. Do you kind of have any idea, like, for a woman in early recovery right now that's dealing with the fear and all the negative dialogue that's going on, trying to find their way, or even what you think in terms of what you were like, what was going on in your head early on in recovery?
Well, it was really important for me to get an apartment and get my daughter back. and there's really no rush.
No.
So I learned the hard way that I was probably 9 months clean, got an apartment, and that was really expensive. Took my 14-year-old daughter back, who could basically cook for herself, go food shopping for herself. She could do everything for herself, but I still couldn't handle taking care of her. And she went back to live with her dad like maybe 8 months later and never came back. A lot of women, I'm really big on telling them there's no rush on, getting their kids corralled, working on your marriage, taking 5 classes at Bunker Hill when you're 3 months clean. I just think that's crazy. I shouldn't have put my cigarette out in my drink. But I didn't want to throw it into the grass because it's really hot outside. So I'm huge on that. Like I remember a perfect example was a young woman, and she got a year, and she fought tooth and nail to get her daughters back. And she left her sober house. She got an apartment, and I remember going over to the apartment, and it was a dump, and but she was getting her kids back, and within 3 months, me and Michelle were kicking in her door because and that's that's something that will stick in my head forever. Like, she was a perfect example of, I can't tell people what to do. Like, I never listened to anybody. There's this kid, his name was Chris Mercia, and he passed away a few years ago, and I met him at a meeting, and he used to say every time he raised his hand, which was every single day at the noontime, if I just did what my father told me, I wouldn't even be here. Like, I never listened to anyone. Yeah. And if I just listened to my mother, like maybe a couple of times, like things might have like turned out different. I think about that, but then I think about like my life is there's so much like meat to my life. Like if I wasn't a drug addict, who found her way into recovery, I'd just be some fucking housewife. Like reading books and just hoping my kids go to bed, and taking Xanax.
Yeah.
I think about stuff like that all the time. But like I'm grateful for the road was so rocky to get here. And one of the reasons why it was because I never listened to anybody. But still, like, I'm always like, you don't have to go back to work. You like, if your car gets repossessed because you're trying to do the right thing, the car that comes next is going to be 100 times better. Yeah. And I meet women all the time that their husbands like want them to stay home. They don't want them to go to meetings. They want them to leave treatment and come home and take care of their shitty kids. And I'm like, dude, like someone better's going to come along.
I call that what it's the alternate plan of action that we develop for ourselves, right? It always comes in the form, it's the first sign of the disease, or first sign of it comes in resistance, right? And that resistance comes in the form of the alternate plan of action that we present to ourselves. Yeah. It's the complete opposite of what other people are suggesting for us. And it's like you watch that process of people who still haven't even began the process of loving themselves, rushing back to give that love away to somebody else, which is, feeding, someone's drinking from a cup that's empty. Yeah. Right. And that can only last for so long before we're just bankrupt spiritually, internally, and all that stuff. And then again, the internal warfare begins. But that presentation of that alternate plan of action is always so much more important or juicy or whatever the fuck you want to call it, right? Because if I'm telling you, like, what we got to do is go deep, right? We gotta begin this process of transparency, right? I just need to know what the dialogue is that's going on in between your ears, and it doesn't matter, and begin with the consistency of that, because repetition is the mother of all skill, and until we practice stuff over and over again,
oh shit,
we're never going to be able to develop that skill set, right? Which is one of the most important skill sets that we develop in recovery. But with me saying that, and I've said that 1,000 times, someone else's mind will go, yeah, no, that's cool, but I got to get back to this job.
I know.
Yeah, but I need to get back to my kids, or I
Yeah.
need to get back to whatever the fuck it is, right?
Happens all the time.
Like, you're the most useless parent on the planet if you have 2 months clean. Useless.
Legit.
Like, what can you do for your kid? Your license is gone. You can't even drive your kids to school. Like,
It's true.
it's crazy, and it's hard, like, trying to explain to a woman who's just coming in, like, where I'm at,
Yeah.
because it's so far away from who I used to be. Like, I didn't forget, and I can put myself right where you are. But if you try to put yourself where I am, it looks like it's going to take feels like it's going to take 100 years.
Yeah, we talk about it
Because
all the
that's
time.
what it feels like.
Can't connect the dots going forward. I love
Yeah.
that saying, but you can back. I do that daily in group. And the thing I like about that, like what you said, when someone new, we deal with people new every day. I immediately, once I engage and talk, I can put myself back in that spot. And I think that's what I enjoy the most, is because who would think just being able to plug in the history of being an asshole, right? And being closed-minded would now benefit me in life to be like, hey, I've been in hell. You're in hell, right? You fucking hate yourself. And people are like, yeah, dude, I don't really have many happy thoughts. That's pretty beautiful to be able to tap into when you thought like that and then see someone's face get relief. We can sit here and joke about it, right? Like, I've had to say that, like, dude, so the job that you basically were calling out of all the time that you barely have because you fucking had to get drunk or get high every day to go to.
Is now the highest priority in your life.
Yeah.
You have 37.
At Best Buy.
Yeah.
But you have 37 hours clean and you're already like, I got to get back to that.
Yeah.
Right? I got to get back to that. You don't even like that job
Yeah.
anyway. Right? But our head just can't, you said, what do you want to do? I don't know, like, because the options are so limited when we're new, as far as in our head. Right? We actually have access to. We have a bunch of shit that we have access to. We just don't know. We haven't tapped into it, And that's the funny thing. We can tap into it because we've all been there, and we all have different paths. You said you were 5 or 6 years clean and miserable. Chris had 4 and wanted to kill himself. I had years clean and felt above going into a meeting to say where I was really at.
Yeah.
Right? That's my story.
Prisoner to perception.
Was afraid. So my pride and ego ultimately drove me out the door, I'm grateful to be back, and I'm a better version of me now. And that's why I enjoy those type of conversations, And sometimes you have to say it like that. See, that's why I like Kim's personality. She'll just be blunt, and it's funny, but sometimes someone has to hear that's new, right? Sometimes it's just so blunt that they get, like, offended. I actually had a guy the other day say, the way you talked to me the other day, at first I wanted to be like, fuck you. But then I kept thinking of it all night, and now I want to thank you. It's beautiful.
No, for sure. But although you're the type of person, though, Kim, in spite of, you'll give someone your perspective and your information, but then you'll love the person in spite of the fact that they're going to go, like, I see a ton of women that are part of your life that are in that repetitive cycle of,
Yeah, it's a given that they're not gonna,
yeah,
they're not gonna, like, you want what I want, so you have to do what I do, and they don't, and and I still love them anyways.
of course.
Everybody used to say I'm the one that loves the ones that everybody hates. Yeah.
But that's a beautiful characteristic, because at some point, I know I was one of those people, early on that just people like, this kid's never gonna fucking get it. I remember, I forget what halfway house I was in. Someone was like, this dude said to me something on the lines of, like, yeah, something about me being like, you're a lost cause or some type of shit. I remember being talked to like that. I remember even a police officer talking to my sister about me like that. But the receiving that love, it makes an impression on people. It might not, it's a seed that's planted. It might not be now, and it might not be in the immediate. That's why the importance of giving, because that's what this is, right? Unconditional love, the giving and receiving of unconditional love, right? That's the most beautiful thing that we get to experience in the halls, where a lot of people don't get to experience that, where I'm able to be like, this is who I am, and you being like, cool, I still want you in my life. A lot of people have to hide in plain sight, and the biggest gift you can give somebody, especially in this world, is unconditional love, right? Regardless of who and what you are, or what you're going through, or what your current circumstances are, and whatever decision you're about to make, in spite of what I'm telling you, I still love you. Call me tomorrow. Call me tonight. After you're going to do exactly what I know you're going to do, and blow your fucking life up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, call me tonight, and I'll ask you how big of a piece of shit you feel.
Yeah.
But that makes such a, the gift is that the best ability that you can have in what we do is availability. It's our responsibilities to ourselves. That's the most important asset that we have, the continuous development of who and what we are, because that's what people see, this process of change. And that's what brings them back. That's what when they come back, and they're like, it's more validation that what we're saying is real. That it's like, maybe people didn't believe me when I was in the Roofers Union that this shit worked. Maybe they started to believe a little more when I was on MTV. Maybe they started really buying wholeheartedly when I started buying real estate. Whatever the fuck made them start to believe, like, holy shit, this fucking heroin addict fucking loser fuck is like doing all this, like, there's something happening. He's not miserable all the time. Look at him smiling in pictures. Mm-hmm. He's in a monogamous relationship with the same person for, oh shit, he's married with we don't know when it's going to click in them where they start to believe, but for me, that's not my responsibility my responsibility is to the process, right? The process of change and growth. So what's new? What's the plans, Kim? What do we got cooking? I know that prior to this, you were in development of a potential something, or is there any talks with Lenny with any?
No,
of this?
I haven't talked to him.
Corona's kind of put everything on.
Everything, yeah. When all this happened, I was like, this didn't really, it didn't bother me. And then I remembered, like, I had like this big thing happening, and the whole thing got canceled. I was like, oh shit, I forgot about that. Cause I'll be on the Zoom meetings, and everybody's like, my daughter, I'm going to fucking kill my daughter. And I'm like, this has just been the greatest 60 days of my life. Like, for the first month, I ate Italian subs every day from Lucci's, and fell asleep on the couch at 3:00 and gained weight, and was in my pajamas for 3 days in a row. And I'd be like, when did I took a shower on Saturday and it's Wednesday. I'll just watch 6 more episodes of Peaky Blinders, and then I'll go, take a shower. And then all of a sudden something happened. Like, it was, I needed to go to another level. Like, cause I'm always getting uncomfortable, and when I'm uncomfortable, I'm like, oh, it's time. Mm-hmm. It's time to like grow a little more. And I finished my steps. In like the end of April, maybe. And I've been through the steps a couple of different times, and every time I gain like a shitload of weight. And then when I'm done, I lose it. And I'm like, I'm just so sick of eating subs. And I started reading like about the Tao and stuff like that. And because Wayne Dyer talks about Taoism, and he says that, because you were talking earlier about how your emotions and everything, like what you had and what people thought, dictated how you felt about yourself and your self-worth. So my goal is, and this is what Wayne Dyer said that the Tao said, is to have a mind that's open to everything and attached to nothing, like not attached to any person, no man, like not how I get along with my kids, or, or what I have or what I don't have. And I don't know what that had to do with eating subs, but
it's breaking your attachment to the subs.
Yeah, but it just seemed like important. It just
Yeah.
seemed important because, like a few years ago, I just wanted to like, you know, I want a boyfriend,
Yeah.
you know, and even though I'm like in my 40s, like I probably had as many pairs of sneakers as you, and and it was insane, and the shit that I care about now,
Yeah.
like my mind, and it's something I have to work on, like have my mind open to everything and attached to nothing, and
Yeah.
not, you know, because I had to spend a lot of time like the last 3 months, like I was by myself. Like a couple of the girls like I'm friends with would come by once in a while. And, but other than that, like I spent morning, noon, and night alone, except when I went to Target to buy, you know, anything.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that. I like that mindset though. The
Like I had to love. I liked being. I moved out of that house. I ran that house at Rise for like 2.5 years, and then I moved into a studio, and I'm like, I really like I don't mind it. I didn't mind like being alone, but sometimes you get like a little like, you know, I miss smoking butts on a deck with 15 other girls, you know, and I just got a little more used to it and just started to like my own company a little bit more. Like the first 3 or 4 hours of the day, I don't go on Facebook. It's all like meditating, praying, working out, like listening to something, you know, about, you know, putting God first.
Yeah.
And starting the day with God. Like I start the day with God. And I'm not on Facebook until like later on in the morning. There's a lot. There's like a lot of shit that I need to do not to be a fucking miserable asshole and to like myself.
It's true.
What is it? Has the dialogue from what you talk to yourself it changed?
Oh my God. Yeah. You're fat, you're ugly, you're old, you know, you're going to die by yourself, you know, all that.
It's insane how disrespectful we can be to ourselves.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fucking crazy. But what's insane is that people don't believe, or don't have the awareness that's the inner observer, right? The voice that speaks to us. It's the voice that's always been there. And when it gets tainted through life or through obviously addiction and trauma, it starts to get abusive in the way that it talks to us. But it's essentially, it was there early on. It's the protective mechanism internally, because I'm going to go do this. Don't do that. What if this happens? What if that happens? Because it doesn't want us to feel uncomfortable. But people don't understand is that when we do the work on ourselves, like you're talking about, the dialogue changes.
Yeah.
100%.
There's like prior to, I remember my first venture of doing anything, stepping outside of my comfort zone, the fear that went around it and the battle, the internal dialogue that went back and forth. Like you can't, don't do it. Like the first time you did stand-up comedy, I'm sure it was fucking terrifying.
The scariest.
It's just like this. The first time I did the podcast, but the first time I ever opened up did anything business-wise, the fear and the dialogue. But ask me how that voice talks to me now. That my shit, sometimes I got to simmer it the fuck down. It's a little arrogant at some points. It's like, why don't we research this shit before we dive into it? Like it's sometimes I have to slow myself down, because that dialogue's now like, do it. Let's fucking do it. Why not? Let's get it. It's a completely different dialogue. And people don't understand that is what we do in the recovery process. It's the changing of that dialogue. There's work required, like you just said. It's a lot of shit we have to do. There's a lot of stuff that we have to do to change the cycle of thought, to change the dialogue from which we talk to ourselves. There's no coasting. It's what you get what you put into this, right? And I mean, both of our stories are very similar in the sense that when we first began this process, we did the bare minimum, right?
Yeah, just enough to stay clean, have a good time.
And it only works for so long.
So grateful.
Yeah.
Hashtag blessed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The fucked up part is that I have moments where I enjoyed it, but it was always when I was around people. So people were responsible. Like you talk about the attachments. I had a ton of attachments, and I required validation from a ton of things. There was a ton of things and then when you removed these things from me, when it was just me, I was fucking dying. Because then that dialogue would kick in. Then the voice would start going. Then my reality would come to me. But when I'd be around like my funny friends, or like fucking, I had to be around. So I lived with fucking 9 dudes for the first 4 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I needed that. I required that. Otherwise, I didn't have the capabilities of validating myself or making myself feel good. I needed somebody else. And now I'm the same as you. I'll sit in my basement and watch fucking movies for 5 months, and it'll be the happiest thing. I'd be fucking happy.
I just can't believe I have a brand new couch. Like, I have a brand new couch and a dog named Lucky, a black lab. Like, how did I get this? How did I get here? Every morning I wake up and I'm like, how did I get this? I live in a house by myself.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
I say it all the time. My life every day still blows my mind. Because it doesn't, the time frame from where I was and where I'm at now doesn't seem as far away as it is, right? 15 years for me doesn't, I remember clear as day the beginning of this process. I remember clear as day. I remember the phone call I made to my mother. I remember Danvers Detox when I got there. I remember New Hope when I got to the fucking, because it was the first time I ever made it to New Hope in South Weymouth. I only ever heard of it. Heard it was the nicest holding and it was this amazing place. And it was in comparison to every other shithole that I went to. And I remember what it was. I remember meeting Scotty. This stuff is like embedded in my head as if it was yesterday. I can still see the halls and the bedroom. So my life, in comparison, I'm comparing it as if it's right. So yes, it blows my fucking mind on a daily basis. And I thank God that it does. I don't want to forget.
Yeah.
When I forget, I get too comfortable. And then I start to classify myself as something not uniquely fucked up, as like a new class. You know what I mean? Like we talked about, the blessings become the things that lure us away. And we start to think that like you talk about leading to your relapse. Like now I'm good. I got this. Look what I've done. Right? Look what.
I haven't done shit.
Nope.
God's done it all.
Yep.
Yeah, what led to my relapse is forgetting that I didn't sleep for weeks in the beginning.
Yeah.
That I was going to be in holding for 3 months to wait for the halfway house. I remember getting that news. See, I don't forget that stuff now. I think about that stuff every day. Like, for instance, you're talking about the dialogue, and now you're in an apartment and have a dog and appreciate these things, right? And we say to ourselves, only addicts can really truly appreciate something small like that, or like, wow, this is mine, and it actually truly feels good, right? Truly, it just feels in. I've been catching myself in the mornings, right? I wake up every morning now. I've been trying to do at least a minimum of a half hour cardio with a hoodie on, lay it up with the heater on. And I just, in some mornings, I just tell myself, don't do it. It's not even that I'm talking negative, but I'm just like, I'm talking like lazy. Don't do it. And every morning, 10 minutes into that, when I start to get that first bead of sweat, it then kicks into like, go for an hour. Like the other day I did an hour. I hate cardio. I do. Right? But I feel better. And then I lift. And then some days I go to the office. Or some days I go to housing. Or some days I paint. Or some days I create, right? And then I'm telling him last night. So when I came home last night and I see that he's still up, I was like, yes. Right? I only have some people that I can truly, really bounce stuff off of, right? Very simple. Man, I'm been in my head, Chris. Well, what is it? I don't know. I just think I could be doing more, or like part of me, because we're not settled up here, right? So I'll start going to, I'm not focusing on the fact that literally everything that I do on a daily basis now is what I wanted. It's what I enjoy. It's what I'm good at, right? But my head will be like, fuck you. Fuck you. You have access to a gym downstairs. Don't go do it, right? Or somehow run rampant where I'm on the highway and I'm just thinking negative, where I have a 4-hour window until the next thing that I have to do that I also enjoy. And my head will go, what are you going to do for the next 4 hours?
Yeah.
The beautiful thing is when I sit there and really just chill, it's whatever the fuck you want, kind of. You want to go take a nap? Do you want to go create? Right? And then I'm saying that to him, and then he's like, so how's that going? What do I go do today? I go and check out this boxing gym. I'm only going there to get a deposit for the paint, right? And it turns into, I'm just going to write you for the whole thing. Here you go. I'll see you Monday. And I'm like, what? Okay. Right? The dialogue changed. When I'm driving home from there, I was happy that we're doing this, that you're coming on, right? This is all stuff, literally everything from the podcast to designing positive content to put out for these companies, whether it's all construction or the process or right? But I worked so hard to get there. And now I'm here and my head will still tell me negative things. See, but I can combat that because I know that it's not true. But I still have to bounce it off a friend and say, Chris, this is what I'm thinking.
It's funny. I wake up every day and my head tells me, don't go do cardio. Don't go work out. And I go, okay. And then I go back to bed.
What's fucked up?
And he talks shit to me every day. Yo, we working out today? I'm like, nah.
What's fucked up is when I first came back, there was a couple days where I literally was still sleeping and woke up and he's like, joking. He's like, yo, you're holding me up. I'm downstairs waiting to work. I was like, oh shit. And I jump out of bed and he's down there waiting. Now he's done.
I think it's just because you want me to. And then I feel like I have to. And once I feel like I have to, I don't want to no more.
Yeah.
So it's psychological. I'm fucked.
He'll show me. I'm just not going to work out because you want me to work out.
You decide tomorrow you're taking the day off and I'll be down there doing fucking supersets, dude.
Oh, I'm in it. I ain't stopping. You can't, When I do that, I mean, yes, I have some days off, but I start every day with doing something that my head's saying don't do.
Yeah.
Because once I'm in it, I enjoy it and I feel better. Look good, feel good. I get to create, right? All that stuff. I work so hard and he would hear from me almost at least a couple times a week while I was down there with how miserable my day-to-day was. And then I was taken out at home and family and being snappy and fucking just being an asshole, right? My spirit was like, homie, you've been fucking in this for way too long.
Yeah.
Got to chase what's in here,
I like what you were talking about, not to cut you off, Jay, but I just didn't want to forget about this. You're talking about the uncomfortability, your spirit calling out for change. Mm-hmm. And I love that. That's essentially what I call the God calls, I answer. The universe calls, I answer. It's like being in tune with that, and that process of like that's part of the evolution, right? The evolution itself and being in tune. A lot of people aren't in tune with that, but there's this thing where I always say the spirit will let you know well before the mind will. Mm-hmm. It always will. It's the same. Like, have you ever been in a relationship that you felt was done, but your head was still trying to tell you like this is gonna work. It's gonna work. We're good. But internally, you could feel the effects of that. Or like we talk about, someone walks in the room, you feel their energy, like not a good person. Stay clear. That's the spirit talking to us and like getting to that point. What do you think was your path to getting to being in more tune with that?
I was in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And I would have done anything to not be in pain. So I was in a relationship that was really fucked up, that I shouldn't have been. And I believe that when you stay in something beyond its expiration date, God is just going to constantly show you that you don't belong there by hurting you nonstop. Mm. And so while I was waiting, and these things happened all the time, but I still needed something more concrete, Yeah. So I said, while I wait, I'm going to work on, I'm going to start doing all these things, because it was a decision. Like, it started in the morning with like listening to positive affirmations, which I do that. I do a shitload of those too. Mm. Positive affirmations, and then shutting off the TV, at like 10 o'clock and putting myself to sleep with guided meditation. And so I could be like more together. Not so much so that I would be like a better girlfriend. I knew because I said it like out loud. I knew I'm going to do all this, and then my work, what I'm doing and how I'm feeling is going to eventually coincide, and I'm going to be okay. And it took a long time. And then when things went really, really bad, and I was really angry, I was still saying to myself, like, this is going to put me somewhere better. Like, this pain is going to propel me. So I don't know what it is. I don't know where I'm going, but it's like, it's okay. And it was kind of crazy. It really was. Like, and then, you know, prior to that, like I lost a couple. I lost Ryan and Hurley, and they were only within like 9 months of each other. That was really difficult. And the person that was supposed to kind of, you know, be like your rock is really a fucking, you know, like a baggie full of dog shit. Like you can't lean on them or anything. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself.
Oh.
I shouldn't even say anything about other people, because every single person that comes into my life, they're either there to stay or they're there to pass through and teach me a lesson about myself. Not about them. Not about like now I know this about you. You're this. Like I know this about me. And it's all about, you know, what I learned about myself. And if I didn't have that experience, I may not be living the way that I live now. You know, like with so focused on my higher power, on God, and how God reliant I am. Because, you know, I learned from being around people that you can't depend on, that I was forced to learn how to depend on something greater than myself.
Well, I truly believe that the blessing will always come out of the lesson, but we have to take the time to learn.
Yeah.
People want to bypass it.
Yeah.
And they don't want to take the time to sit within it, right? We have to feel it to heal it and acknowledge whatever it is, even the truths about ourselves, the parts that we play and whatever the fuck it is. But that's some of the most pivotal and necessary information that I've picked up. It's through those painful experiences that you're talking about.
Yeah, that lesson was taught to me over and over and over again, probably for 30 years before I finally learned it.
Pain's always been my greatest motivator, you know?
Yeah.
Most life-changing things that, like, just different paths that I took, it was just so much pain, and ultimately, till this point, was the relapse.
Yeah.
It was super painful, and I grow from that every day. I'm really big on some of the things that I've caused myself the greatest pain, I tap into on a daily basis, and it gives me fuel, literally, for almost anything that I go through, or any conversation where you need advice, or you just tap into that. I don't know how to really pinpoint it to help someone else specifically, other than just owning my process, right? As much as we want it, sometimes people are in so much pain, you just want to give them something. I just want to, you know, I think that's why I sweat sometimes speaking or in a group, because we're tapping into the ugliest parts of us. Who the fuck wants to talk about that? But yet we know that when we do tap into that, that's how we get plugged into those friendships that have been so strong for years.
Yeah.
You know, or the advice. Half the stuff that we talk about on here, I've been there, and vice versa. He's been there for me, and we've seen your process in the beginning. But I can still get something out of it because I'm willing to. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's the beautiful thing about it. Can always get something out of stuff I was actually there for. Imagine that. Someone's telling a story where I know what the ending is, but listening the right way, I can get something out of it. It's just a beautiful process, you know?
No, for sure. So we're coming to the end of the podcast. I always like to end the podcast, Kim, with like a type of question and stuff like that. And so I never know what the question is going to be either. So this is another where I put myself on the spot and panic
like,
till I...
Put yourself...
Yeah.
Me.
No, it starts with me.
Well, now you're going to try to think of questions you haven't asked either.
Well, yeah, no, for sure. Because I already asked her if you could give you self-advice going back to your earlier process. That's one of my go-to questions. But
don't take my kids back.
Yeah.
Or kid. It wasn't even both of them. It was just one.
Yeah. Mine would be don't sell steroids and do them, because don't do mass amounts of them when you don't know what you're doing, because your hair will fall out and you have to get a hair transplant. And also you get a ton of back acne, and then you'll be insecure and not want to take off your shirt, because that's what I did.
Oh, shit.
Dude, my hair fell out so bad. I didn't know that you can't take excessive amounts. So I was just a skinny guy that just tried to get super jacked wicked fast. And my hair just fucking dumb. I looked like Hulk Hogan, where I just went fucking super. Wow. Yeah. And then
When was that?
First years 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, I wasn't around yet.
No. And then I got massive back pimples. So I got the biggest I ever gotten, but I had just fucking, I was bald with back knee, just insecure in an apartment, just sad.
Oh, you poor thing. That sucks.
Yeah, no, it was fucking brutal. But so what could be my question? Pivotal moment in your recovery. What do you think a turning point was? It could be a situation, a circumstance, a person, someone that has maybe come along, and there have been like for example, there have been certain people that have come into my life that have changed the course and the direction, or we can look back and kind of see situations and circumstances that kind of shaped us or put us in a new direction that led us to where this is now. What do you think that moment is, or that situation is? Like for me, I talked about it. It was that men's meeting, and the individual that changed, that began this was Nate for me, right? He was the first man in my life that I truly began telling the full truth to. Mm-hmm. And that was a pivotal turning point for my recovery. That changed everything. It began the process for me. And then so much changed because of that. What are those moments been for you? Has there been?
One in particular that stands out. I was 4 years clean. I was on my 4th step, and my father died. And I hadn't spoken to him in a really long time. And I just enjoyed like coasting on how much I despised him, and that everything that was wrong with me was his fault from day one. And now I'm like 43, 44 years old, and he's on his deathbed. And I suddenly, because I'm on my 4th step, I want to speak to him. And I want to make things right before he dies. And he says no. And he dies. And it was like maybe a couple of days after he passed away. First, I thought it wasn't real because he had, my father had faked his own death like 20 years ago because he has like 15 kids. And I guess a couple of them, we're hitting him up for money. So he literally faked his own death. So it took me a couple of days, I called one of my stepmothers because there's like 6 of them. And she was the most savvy one. And she was like, honey, his Social Security card ain't active anymore. He's gone, baby. I'm sorry. And I was like, all right. But the day I realized that my father was an addict, just like me, and he loved me the best way that he knew how. And that was by not being around me. Was a huge turning point in my recovery because the foundation of my life was built on how much I hated him and how I never wanted to be like him, but was on my way to being exactly like him. The only thing that separated me from my father was the grace of God. Came into my life, and that's it. That's the only thing that was different, that made me different from him. But like I thought he was so selfish and awful my whole entire life, but my father was he was an addict.
No.
And he loved me. Mm-hmm. And at that nobody even told me that. It was just something that happened while I was writing my steps. So while I couldn't speak to him, I couldn't make things right with him before he died. Once he died, and I had that like a epiphany or revelation, like things started to change. So that was huge.
Yeah. That's similar to like Justin has like a similar story with his mother.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. No. What about you, Jay?
A turning point?
Yeah. Or a situation, a circumstance, a person, something that you can connect looking back that you see altered. Or
as far as this time back, almost 4 years ago, I remember being at the men's meeting. I think I had 9 months clean. And a big part of my relapse and something that was hard to get over was seeing things that we had discussed when we had years clean. You know, as far as the process and rise and all this stuff, a lot of guilt and shame was to not be able to be a part of that, you know?
Yeah.
Because to get the time that I had that I did give away, a big part of that was service and helping people. But once I realized after that conversation we had where you said, stop dwelling on the fact that you gave away the time, you still have the knowledge. That conversation right there was super powerful, and I think I had, if I remember correctly, I had fallen off after that, but that always resonated. And then when I came back this time and had 9 months, he said, you down to pick up some shifts? And I remember being like, yeah, what, at the house? He's like, yeah. Right? And now it's like, yo, you're doing it. Like, that's the dialogue I had in my head. Like, you're, for all that time keeping you out there and being depressed and seeing it turn into what it was into and being like, you want to talk about negative self-talk, being like, you fucking loser.
Yeah.
Right? I'm the one that chose to pick up. Might as well go back out. You're not a part of this. Right? Dwelling on the fact that certain friendships didn't seem as tight. Obviously, when you're out there, you're not going to be tight with your friends that have you as clean anymore. You're using. That's what I mean that I tapped into and I use as motivation today. And Chris saying, do you want to pick up some shifts? That was the first time actually working in treatment around addicts. I had done step work with guys, right? And typically a lot of the guys I sponsored were guys I knew from the street because they come in and, right, we got that false ego and pride of like, I don't know this dude, but they seen that I was doing good, so those guys would gravitate towards me. But now to be in a setting, to be accepted, well, not accepted, but to be like, you're doing it and get thrown in it. And that's where my course of this recovery process for me changed. And I think really ultimately when we made that move to go to Florida, yes, there was definitely some like, deep down was like, I'm going to be back. You know what I mean? Like, in all honesty, definitely like even saying to my girl, like, once it started to get really hard down there, I mean, I still fought through it with doing a career and embarking on stuff that I wasn't familiar with. And it literally just, it proved to me that I need to go back to my passions, right? And you gave me that opportunity, right? So when I was down there, I just kept thinking of that. And that definitely changed my course 100%. Because when I was down there, what I was comfortable with the most was the contact with other addicts that were still up here. Former clients, friends, right? So that's something that 100% sticks out, was that turning point of, you are back. Stop dwelling on the time and realize you've learned and you've become a better version. Stop focusing on time. So that's ultimately how it resonates with me, is that I stopped beating myself up that I don't have that time anymore.
Yeah, because ultimately it doesn't fucking matter. It's what we do with the time that we do have right now. This moment's the only moment that's ever going to be real. That's it. Right now we're already all right. I try to tell people that all the time. It's so hard to comprehend, and just, you're good. We're in a room right now, especially with clients, addicts, people in the hall. Like, you're okay now. Your issue is getting you to understand that, right? And getting you in touch with the present moment. But I don't know, like a lot of good shit on this podcast. I want to thank Kim for coming in. If you made it through this full episode, there's a lot of good shit. Understand that recovery is a process. Everything good happens in time. What you put into this shit is what you get out of it, and you ultimately have to find your people. Your responsibility is to your truth. Transparency with your truth is the key that opens up all the doors in recovery. We talk about this all the time. Some keys open up some doors, meetings, networks, something like that. But your honesty and connection will open up all doors to all things that we want. And recovery isn't just about getting clean and staying clean. It's about the development of a life worth living, and opening up the peanut-sized ideas that we begin this process with to the possibilities of anything. because there is a world out there that we're supposed to go out there and live. Life is there for us to live the shit out of. And when you start to understand the internal work that is required, and you start to become repetitious in this work, the perception of the world around you will change, and your ideas and everything that you brought into this, the negative belief systems, will change too, and life becomes beautiful again. And we can stop to smell the roses and all that shit that we used to resent when we heard people say, and we start to enjoy moments, right? We start to let go of attachments, but it comes with an expectation of work. Work is required with any good thing in life. Work is required. Nothing good comes easy. So I want you to check out Kim's YouTube video if you haven't seen it, because it's fucking hilarious. I think it's Welcome. What is that YouTube video called?
I think it's Medford Mom Rant.
Medford Mom Rant. Fucking hilarious.
It's on my Facebook.
On her Facebook. We'll throw Kim's Facebook right here. Her IG handle if you want to follow her.
Costophobia.
He's going to put it right here. Right there. It's going to be floating
right
in the air. Yeah. Shout out to my brother Nico and Rich Print Shop in the building, our only sponsor of the show. They be out there slinging them T-shirts. If you need them, follow him on Instagram. He actually has an Instagram. We're going to put that right here.
Yep.
Up here, somewhere around here. But shout out to my co-hosts, J Mac, Justin, and Chris couldn't be here tonight. They'll be back next episode. And that's it. Peace.
Peace.